Hi, I'm Dr. Sandy Queen with Queen Homeschool Supplies, and I'm just going on with my next video in the series on identifying and teaching to your child's learning style. And again, this is all included in my book called Learning My Way, which is available under the Parent Resources section at queenhomeschool.com. Okay, and yesterday I talked a little bit about my kids. I have 6 children and how I discovered their learning styles. And I mentioned that there are 3 main learning styles. Today I'm going to discuss the first one, which is the visual learner, and that's what I am. I'm a completely visual learner. So as you can guess, probably the visual learner learns best by seeing things. And, it's very easy for a visual learner to memorize things that they're looking at. And that's why I graduated public school with straight A's in subjects like history, because I had to memorize these lists of dates and generals and wars and things. And just looking at those lists was very easy for me to memorize those. And so the visual learner will learn best by seeing. They will hone in on things that are visual, like one of the things that we have is the Pictures in Cursive Writing series, which uses beautiful full color artwork as the jump off point for the cursive writing lessons. And so a visual child will get right into those pictures and really pay attention to all those little details that we're asking them to find. And the other learning styles will use this same book. I wrote this for all 6 of my kids, which are different learning styles, but they'll use it a little bit differently, and I will talk about that as the videos go on in this series. The visual child will also excel with things like copy work, and this particular volume in our Copy Work for Young Ones series, Memorization Verses for Copy Work, has lessons for them to copy on things like the books of the Bible and the days of the week and the months of the year in order and things like that, things that will help them memorize things. But they're copying these things to practice the mechanics of the English language, and the visual child will be able to see that and understand, oh, that's correct, this goes there, and they will very easily remember those punctuation rules when they see them correctly written in things like this. Whereas the other learning styles will need a little bit more of a tweak to the way that you teach them. So for me, being a visual learner, it's very easy for me to look at that grocery list on my refrigerator, have it committed to memory. The closest grocery store to me is about 45 minutes each way. And so I have that 45-minute drive to the grocery store, and I'm thinking about everything on that list because I looked at it before I left the house, and I have it all up here. And you would think that being a visual learner, I would go into the grocery store and go right to those items because I have them all up here. But what happens instead is that being a visual learner, I am distracted as soon as I go into the store, and I'm distracted by all the pretty things and all the new things, and my eyes start gravitating toward other things that I see that then distracts me from those things on my list. So I still need to take the list if I want to come home with the stuff that was on the list. So what you'll find is that whatever the strengths of a particular learning style are, those can also be the weaknesses of that particular learning style, such as in that example, having that committed to memory because I saw it, but then being distracted with my same learning style visually. So that is one thing to keep in mind as I'm talking about all of the different learning styles, because that can very easily happen with all of us. But you'll see you can identify often a visual learner even as a very young infant. Kylie, my firstborn, was a visual learner, and she would sit on my lap even as an infant and look at the picture books that I would read to her so intently, and she would just focus on those pictures. Whereas some of my other kids who had different learning styles reacted very differently, and I'll talk about that when I talk about their learning styles. But the things to look for a visual learner is a child that is very easily focused on pretty things and colorful things and detailed pictures and detailed little crafty type things. They always point out the visual details. They're very drawn to color artwork. They're also distracted by those things if you're trying to get them to focus on something and they see something pretty over here, they want to look at that instead. So those are some things to look for. I will talk more about the different learning styles in detail, but if you have a visual learner, you want to look for a child who picks up things, memorizes things very easily by looking at them. My oldest daughter, again, who's a visual learner, I never did a formal spelling program for her. She learned how to read, as you heard me talk about yesterday, when she was 2.5. And she would see the things that I was teaching her, and it would be locked in her brain. So she could easily look at a word and know if it was spelled right, or see the punctuation marks incorrect. Always pointing out stuff on billboards and other books and cookbooks even where there were typos. So it's very easy for the visual learner to identify those once they know the correct way to spell and to punctuate, because they automatically see it standing out like a sore thumb. You've probably heard that term. So the visual learner will definitely hone right in on those things once they know the correct rules, which usually come very easy to them if you're teaching them in a way that they can see it as well. And I will elaborate a little bit more on the visual learner as I talk about some of the other learning styles. So join me tomorrow when I introduce the next learning style that we're going to talk about.